Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Is it possible for stupidity to topple the United States government? The conversation about Joe Biden's first campaign speech continues today at 1850 Main Street.
We've been talking for days about this speech, the first speech of the Biden campaign, 2024. And we're talking about it on 1850. We're talking about it on your morning show. We're talking about it on the public square because we can't get past it. And so the conversation just keeps on going.
Let me read to you. This is only 3 paragraphs in, and he says, "Today, we gather in a new year, some 246 years later from all this fantastic rewriting of history and putting words in George Washington's mouth. Just one day before January 6th, a day forever seared in our memory." That's the kind of language you use if you're talking about 9/11 and Pearl Harbor.
Yeah.
Seared in our memory because it was the day that we nearly, did anybody think we were close to losing America January 6th? Because if you do think so, you need to have your head examined. I mean, nobody even remotely thinks that. Then he goes on to say
he
this.
said because it was on that day that we nearly lost America, lost it all. Okay.
Today, we're here to answer the most important questions. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? I mean it. This is not rhetorical, David, academic or hypothetical. Well, we've already critiqued the grammar to tell you it's not academic, nor is it historically accurate. Whether democracy is still America's sacred cause is the most urgent question of our time, and it's what the 2024 election is all about. Well, we wondered what card they would play. They're playing the card we thought they would.
And so here's what we've got. Yeah. Now let's go back to one other thought. How in the world could democracy have been the sacred cause at Valley Forge when democracy was a concept of government that was still unfolding? We had yet to have the Constitutional Convention where, in fact, we would debate what kind of government we wanted for America. We have yet to reach the end of the war in 1783, at what point in time General Washington would be there with the troops. 1783, the war's over. The victory at Yorktown has been accomplished. The British have surrendered. Now, they send John Adams and a few others over to France to get the paperwork done in regards to the peace treaty. So Washington's sitting there in the field in 1783 with his troops because he can't send them home because what if the paperwork falls apart? What if something else happens? So they're waiting. And in that time, he writes perhaps his most effective and important document called the Circular to the States. He writes to all the governors of the now what will be independent nation states of America, explaining what kind of government he thinks we ought to establish. You would simply think if this was what the sacred cause was, then George Washington would say, now it's time to set up our democracy. But in fact, you find a series of statements in the ensuing years between that period of time and the French Revolution where the founders unanimously decry democracy as a form of government because they know it's the worst form of government. That is the way to incite factions. It ends up tribalizing people. It becomes a house divided. You end up with revolution and counter-revolution, and you end up exactly with where France ended up with, which was the bloody reign of terror and people lopping off other people's heads. They didn't like democracy as a pure system of government. They liked the concept, but they were not attempting to frame our government on that notion. George Soros, John Podesta, Joe Biden, that's their agenda. That's the Democrat platform.
It's the only way to get the wrong answer is to ask the wrong question. Is democracy still America's sacred cause? Not liberty, not sovereignty, not self-governance, not religious freedom. They add democracy. They want to ask the wrong question in order to get their wrong answer.
It's all code. They're using code words. And again, they're spellbinding people. They're just basically trying to wrap. And then what they're saying is, so this is what America always was. Obviously, the Republicans and Donald Trump and anybody else, they'll wrap Kennedy into this somehow too. Anybody who disagrees with them, of course, is anti-American, enemy of the state, anti-democracy. Well, if you change all the rules, then everybody who was playing the game according to the historical version, of course, is out of sync because you changed the rules. But then they go back and they try to blame it on George Washington. I mean, this is astounding to me.
Can I read one more clip?
Sure.
3 years ago tomorrow, we saw with our own eyes the violent mob that stormed the United States Capitol. It was almost in disbelief as you just turned on the television. For the first time in our history, insurrectionists had come to stop the peaceful transfer of power in America for the first time. And of course, smashing windows, shattering doors, attacking police. By the way, isn't it interesting that what you saw for an entire summer prior to the 2020 election, this with Black Lives Matter and with Antifa in major cities, they even took a portion of Seattle and created a sovereign zone for a while.
Yeah.
That burning, destroying of businesses, destroying of police vehicles, attacking of police departments, attacking police officers, attacking and killing innocent civilians, burning things up. That was an insurrection. But a couple of shattered windows and doors broken was. Outside, gallows were erected as MAGA crowd chanted, "Hang Mike Pence." Inside, they hunted for Speaker Pelosi. Then he has the audacity to historically, if you think he was wrong to historically quote George Washington, because the only person killed that day was an unarmed, innocent American protester who was an Air Force veteran. And there was never any explanation given why lethal force was used. And then he has the audacity to bring up how he attended the funeral of an officer who died as the result, this is in the speech, as the result of the events, which was proven to not be so. It was a medical condition.
And PBS that covered this article and has the audio transcript that we've been using. PBS lists that an event that was lethal. I think their number is 11 people died as a result. Whoa. We know one person, unarmed, was shot to death by Capitol Police. And to the best of our knowledge, there was no prosecution of the officer who shot an unarmed citizen. Now, right, wrong, or indifferent, there was never any, okay.
Well, journalism's dead.
All right, I'll stop at that.
Yeah.
The three people that died on the Capitol, either that day or short after, were Trump, or I guess they were Trump supporters. I don't know who they are. They were involved in the protest. They died of heart attacks or something like that. Okay, so they died as the direct result of their activities on that day, and they were a part of the side of the protesters. Of the law enforcement officials that died, and there is absolutely no excuse for Americans to attack law enforcement, period, end of discussion.
Of course.
And this is absolutely no defense whatsoever for what was done on January 6th. Zero. It was one of the dumbest things.
Including Donald Trump, who didn't lead an insurrection, but had a really dumb day.
It was one of the dumbest things that has ever happened in our country, and prosecuting people that were there under the rule of law fairly and justly is not an egregious. They broke the law. People who broke the law should be held accountable, and people who attack police officers at any level should be held accountable. No question.
Well, they weren't during the summer of 2020, but go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. But no cops died because of what happened there.
No.
There's no proof for that. But PBS has no problem whatsoever in saying it that way. The President of the United States, members of the United States Congress, they talk that way. They have no proof. It's just the story they want for people to believe. Okay, fine.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
So January 6th is now the day that America almost lost it all. Really. Almost lost it all.
And he's the commander in chief over a military that was never even called into action.
it's going to be very interesting if the Supreme Court ever is called upon to finally deal with the legal prosecution against Donald Trump in regards to this. And apparently the court is going to hear the case.
They're going to hear it.
They hear the cases in regards to Trump being removed because of insurrection. So here's the question I have. At what point in time does what happened on January 6th represent the ability for the people that were there on that property doing what they were doing to end the American government as we know it? What strategy could they have implemented that would have ended the United States government?
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
Right.
Furthermore, all they did was delay the inevitable. And the stupidity of the whole thing was, if they honestly had issues about the electoral count, the only way for those issues to have ever been presented was to not disrupt that session.
Right.
Because there is legal statutory means by which Congress can challenge the electoral count in the states, but it takes the time to be able to do it, the time for the Vice President of the United States to recognize members of the House and the Senate, for protests to be filed, and for subcommittees to study the protest. It takes time. The only way that they could possibly have made an impact on the challenging the validity of the electoral count was to let the process proceed unhindered. Not only was it really stupid behavior, it was the exact opposite thing for them to do if they actually wanted to have an honest hearing. It was just stupid all around. So how does stupid take down the American government?
Now, the mob chanting for the vice president did happen. I think some of the rhetoric that Donald Trump chose to use, and again, this is where I hold Trump and Nancy Pelosi accountable. Nancy Pelosi had 2 weeks' notice on this. And when the sergeant of arms came to her, she did nothing. No plans with the Capitol Police, no plans bringing in the National Guard. By the same token, FBI, CIA, and I'm sure Secret Service had informed the president of the same threats, which should have altered his rhetoric that day. David, why is it so hard for people to say out loud, Nancy Pelosi set a trap and Donald Trump was dumb enough to walk into it?
Hey, look, I don't say that because I don't know for sure. Now, we can speculate, and I can't fault that there's an apparent logic in that. But I'd take it even simpler than that. Stupid is as stupid does, and stupid should hurt. These people were stupid. Now, I'm not exactly sure how stupid qualifies as an insurrection. And what makes me even laugh out loud is that Joe Biden is actually under the delusion that that level of stupid that happened on January 6th was the greatest threat that has ever faced our nation.
Well, this is what happens, I think, when you go over years. It takes, 50 years to have 3 generations? Doesn't it? Something like that?
Of school children, yeah. I mean, usually.
Yeah, all right. So we're probably more than that. This is what happens when you don't teach accurate history or history at all or civics at all for 3 to 6 generations that you can get away with this. But I guarantee you whoever wrote this knew what they were writing was inaccurate. And by the way, the whole final gist of it is we almost lost our country on January 6th. Not all the attacks in the streets from Antifa and Black Lives Matter that's still happening to some degree today was shoplifting. Never mind any of that. That wasn't insurrection. That was good trouble. Go back and watch the 2020 Democratic Convention. That was good trouble. Biden said it was good trouble. Kamala said it was good trouble. This almost cost us our nation. And if you elect Donald Trump, the next time it will. Now, how insulting is that to our military? How insulting is that to our checks and balances?
To our court system. How insulting is it to every person who's a member of a state legislature, to every governor, to every voting citizen, to everyone who believes in the Constitution of the United States? Okay. All that being said.
Boy, that Capitol building, David, if we don't have that brick and mortar, we have nothing.
Well, and the great irony.
Break a window and we're almost losing the country.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about how many people broke nails that day. I mean, it's absurd. The whole concept is absurd. And it's absurd because they think we're that stupid. Now, I don't give a rat's rear end on this discussion regarding Donald Trump. What Donald Trump did on that day was stupid. What his supporters did was stupid. This has nothing to do with anybody voting or not voting for Donald Trump. I don't care about any of that. What I care about is when a president of the United States attempts to put his specific electoral strategy, this isn't even public policy. This is pure, brutal politics. And he attacks the first president of the United States and forces words into his mouth at Valley Forge that are simply absolutely not true and were not spoken. There's no logic. There's no history. It's foolishness. And what it comes down to is he's doing it because of a political campaign. I find that deeply troubling.
So we've been having a long discussion about this, and we basically covered the gist of all of it, but certainly in-depthly the first only 8 to 10 paragraphs of this speech that is too painful to listen to Joe Biden, with no energy and a lot of breathing and bad pronunciation, but it reads even more painfully. From front to back, all 36 pages. What offends you? What should offend us all? What's really at stake that nobody noticed it? That's my question to you.
What's at stake is that the Progressive Party is trying to change our form of government. When they talk about democracy, they're talking about the rule of an aristocratic elite and their selected friends that will tell all the rest of us what we are supposed to do and what we're not supposed to do. They believe in a system of winners and losers that are protected by the administrative state and are selected by the administrative elites. They do not believe in government of, by, and for the people. They don't believe that, in the words of Abraham Lincoln. Well,
they certainly don't believe in self-governance, do they, at all?
They don't believe in the Declaration of Independence anymore. They don't believe in the principles of the Constitution. They want a different form of government, and they have every right to want that. They code name it democracy. What it really is.
Say that again, because that's the bullseye. They're not saying, here's what you've been for 246 years. Do you want to keep being that? Or do you want to do what we're saying, which is an administrative state?
An elitist
instead of
oligarchy where
they don't ever give you that choice. They say they were what we've always been, even though it's completely different using code words.
It's exactly right. They're using code words. What they want is the ruling elite to decide the winners and the losers, the administrative state to put everything into play, and all the rest of us to pay for it. And if we get out of line, they'll show you what it means to be an enemy of the state.
This conversation continues on The Public Square, the daily broadcast of the American Policy Roundtable. To listen anytime, visit thepublicsquare.com or download the free phone app at your app store. Just look for The Lamppost. And we'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.